The old house stood on a hill overlooking the town. It had been abandoned for years, a relic of a bygone era, shrouded in mystery and local legends. Its windows were dark, like empty eyes staring into the night. The townsfolk whispered about strange noises and ghostly apparitions, but no one dared to venture inside. A group of friends, Sarah, Ben, Emily, and Josh, dared each other to explore it. They had heard the stories but were eager to uncover the truth for themselves. They were young, reckless, and drawn to the unknown. The thrill of adventure and the promise of discovering something extraordinary fueled their courage. The air grew heavy as they stepped inside, the silence broken only by their nervous laughter. Each step they took echoed through the empty halls, amplifying their unease. Dust motes danced in the faint moonlight, filtering through cracks in the boarded-up windows. The house seemed to breathe with a life of its own, whispering secrets of the past. The air was thick with the smell of decay, a testament to years of neglect. Peeling wallpaper and crumbling plaster told stories of a time long forgotten. They moved from room to room, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Every corner held the promise of a new discovery, yet also the threat of the unknown. Each creak of the floorboards sent shivers down their spines. The house seemed to be alive, reacting to their presence with every step they took. They found an attic door hidden behind a tapestry. It was as if the house itself was guiding them, revealing its secrets one by one. They pushed it open, revealing a narrow staircase leading up into the darkness. The air grew colder as they ascended, their breath visible in the dim light. Hesitantly they climbed, their flashlights casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. Each step felt like a journey into the unknown, filled with both fear and excitement. At the top, they found a small, dusty room. It was filled with old furniture and forgotten memories, a time capsule of the past. In the center stood a large, ornate mirror covered with a sheet. It seemed out of place, almost too grand for such a humble attic.
Curiosity overriding caution, Sarah reached out and pulled the sheet away. The fabric fell to the floor, revealing the mirror's intricate frame.
The mirror gleamed in the dim light, its surface reflecting their faces back at them, but something was off. Their reflections seemed different. It was as if the mirror held a piece of their souls, distorting their images in subtle, unsettling ways. A subtle shift, a flicker in their eyes, a hint of something sinister lurking beneath the surface. The friends exchanged uneasy glances, realizing that their adventure had only just begun, and the true mystery of the old house was far from being uncovered. They stared, transfixed at their reflections, unable to look away from the unsettling images before them. Sarah noticed a slight sneer on her mirrored self's face, a look of cold amusement that sent a chill down her spine. It was as if her reflection knew something she didn't, something dark and sinister. Ben's reflection seemed gaunt, his eyes hollow and filled with a strange hunger. He felt a pang of fear, wondering what could cause such a transformation in his mirrored self. Emily saw a flicker of malice in her reflection's eyes, a hint of cruelty she never knew she possessed. It was as if the mirror was revealing a hidden part of her soul, one she was not ready to confront. Josh's reflection appeared almost feral, a predatory glint in its eyes. He felt a surge of primal fear, as if he was staring into the eyes of a wild animal. They laughed, nervously, trying to dismiss the unsettling feeling that crept over them. The laughter was hollow, a desperate attempt to mask their growing unease.
It was just the shadows, they told themselves. Shadows and tricks of the light. The flickering light playing tricks on their eyes. They tried to convince themselves it was nothing more than an optical illusion.
But deep down, a seed of unease had been planted. It grew with each passing second, taking root in their minds. They couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The air felt charged with an unseen presence, watching them from the shadows. They turned away from the mirror, trying to regain their composure, but the images they had seen lingered in their minds, haunting them. They joked about the creepy old house and their overactive imaginations. But the laughter felt forced, a thin veil over the growing fear that gnawed at them. But the image of their distorted reflections lingered in their minds. They couldn't quite erase the unsettling feeling that they had seen something truly disturbing. They couldn't quite erase the unsettling feeling that they had seen something truly disturbing. It was as if the mirror had shown them a glimpse of another reality, one filled with darkness and fear. As they descended the creaking stairs, the laughter felt forced, a thin veil over the growing fear that gnawed at them. Each step echoed in the silence, amplifying their unease. The house seemed to press in on them, its silence now heavy with unspoken dread. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with tension. The shadows seemed deeper, the air thicker, the darkness more oppressive. It was as if the house itself was alive, watching their every move. The playful exploration had turned into a desperate escape. They ran through the house, their fear driving them forward, desperate to escape the unseen terror that seemed to follow them. The next day, drawn back by a morbid curiosity, they returned to the attic. The mirror beckoned them, its surface promising a glimpse into a world both familiar and terrifying. They looked again, and this time the changes were more pronounced. The sneers, the hunger, the malice, the feral glint, they were all amplified, intensified. Sarah's reflection now wore a cruel smirk, her eyes glinting with malicious intent. Ben's reflection looked emaciated, his skin stretched taut over his bones, his eyes burning with an insatiable hunger. Emily's reflection's eyes were filled with a chilling emptiness, reflecting a soul consumed by darkness. Josh's reflection now bared its teeth in a snarl, its eyes wild and predatory.
Fear began to take root, twisting their insides with icy tendrils.
They saw glimpses of themselves, twisted and corrupted, reflected back at them. They began to question their own identities, their own sanity. The line between reality and reflection blurred, making them doubt what they saw and what they felt. They tried to look away, to break the spell of the mirror, but something held them captive. The mirror seemed to exert a strange pull, drawing them in, forcing them to confront the darkness within themselves. The house seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable. The mirror became a daily ritual, a morbid obsession. Each day they found themselves drawn to it, unable to resist its pull. It was as if the mirror had a life of its own, calling to them, whispering their names in the dead of night. Each visit brought new horrors, new distortions. The once clear reflections now twisted and warped, showing them visions of their deepest fears and darkest desires. It was a descent into madness, a journey into the unknown.
Their reflections whispered to them, their voices a chilling echo of their own darkest thoughts and desires. The whispers were soft at first, barely audible, but they grew louder with each passing day, becoming an inescapable part of their reality.
The whispers promised power, knowledge, and a release from the mundane. They spoke of secrets hidden in the shadows, of truths that could change their lives forever. The allure was irresistible, a siren's call that beckoned them closer.
They offered a glimpse into a world where their deepest, darkest desires could be realized. A world where they could be free from the constraints of society, where they could embrace their true selves without fear of judgment.
Sarah's reflection spoke of revenge against those who had wronged her. It showed her visions of retribution, of power and control over her enemies. The reflection's dark smile mirrored her own growing desire for vengeance. It whispered promises of power and control. It told her that she could have everything she ever wanted, if only she would listen, if only she would give in to the darkness within her.
Ben's reflection spoke of indulging in forbidden desires, of satiating the hunger that gnawed at his soul. It showed him visions of a life without restraint, a life where he could fulfill his every desire without consequence.
Emily's reflection spoke of embracing the darkness, of shedding the constraints of morality and conscience. It promised her freedom, a life unburdened by guilt or shame, a life where she could be truly herself.
Josh's reflection urged him to unleash the beast within, to revel in primal instincts. It showed him visions of power and dominance, of a life where he could be the master of his own fate, unbound by the rules of society.
They resisted at first, clinging to the remnants of their sanity. They tried to ignore the whispers, to push them away, but the pull of the mirror was too strong. It was a battle they were slowly losing. They tried to convince themselves that it was just their imaginations, that the whispers were nothing more than the echoes of their own fears. But deep down, they knew the truth. The mirror was changing them, warping their minds and souls.
But the whispers grew louder, more insistent, more seductive. They promised everything they had ever wanted, everything they had ever feared. The temptation was too great to resist.
They began to seep into their waking thoughts, blurring the lines between reality and the reflected world. The mirror's influence was growing, spreading like a dark shadow over their lives.
The house seemed to feed on their fear, growing stronger with each visit. It was as if the very walls were alive, pulsing with a dark energy that thrived on their terror. The shadows deepened, The air grew heavier, the silence more oppressive. It was a suffocating presence, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked within the mirror.
The once familiar rooms now felt alien, hostile, as if the very walls were closing in on them. The house had become a labyrinth of fear, a place where they could no longer find solace or peace. The house had become a prison, and the mirror its warden. They were trapped, caught in a web of their own making, unable to escape the darkness that had taken hold of their lives. Their lives began to unravel. Sleep became a luxury they could no longer afford, haunted by nightmares of their twisted reflections.
Their waking hours were filled with paranoia and fear, constantly looking over their shoulders, expecting to see their doppelgangers lurking in the shadows.
They were trapped in a waking nightmare, unable to escape the grip of the mirror.
Sarah became withdrawn and hostile, her every action fueled by a simmering rage.
Ben grew gaunt and pale, his eyes hollow and haunted by a constant hunger.
Emily embraced a chilling indifference, her emotions replaced by a cold, calculating emptiness.
Josh became increasingly erratic and violent, his actions driven by primal instincts he could no longer control.
Their friends and family noticed the changes, but their concerns were dismissed as stress or teenage angst. They were blind to the true horror that was consuming them, the insidious influence of the mirror slowly twisting their souls.
They were alone in their descent into madness, their pleas for help unheard, their warnings unheeded.
The house stood on the hill, a silent witness to their unraveling. It watched as they succumbed to the darkness, as they became reflections of the horrors they had seen in the mirror. The house had claimed them, body and soul. The whispers became commands, irresistible urges they could no longer deny. They were drawn to the mirror, compelled to embrace the darkness it offered.
The reflections promised fulfillment, a release from the pain and confusion of their lives.
They offered a world where they could be their truest selves, free from the constraints of morality and consequence.
Sarah embraced the promise of power, giving in to the urge for revenge.
Ben surrendered to his hunger, seeking to satiate the insatiable craving that consumed him.
Emily welcomed the emptiness, finding solace in the absence of emotion and conscience.
Josh unleashed the beast within, reveling in the freedom of primal instinct.
They began to mimic their reflections, their actions mirroring the twisted behaviors they saw in the mirror. They became the monsters they had once feared, their humanity slowly eroding, replaced by a cold, calculating darkness. The line between reality and reflection vanished completely.